Nyalche chenpo zato nyingmi shang, zonen manam chenpo, nyalche da, dankara darngam santo, sherma to, stumba tukje chanla ki shiom sar, nishan rawar zer ngi shangam sa, jawar tukji shanla yalaman, jime banzo shala soran, gongkyo toban pora shinji lo, gongkyo toban pora shinji lo, gongkyo toban pora shinji lo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Before we delve into the teachings of the Shurangama Sutra, I would like to take a moment to bring a few important matters to everyone's attention. Firstly, regarding our upcoming schedule for the next week, specifically the classes that are planned around the date of October 1st, let me explain it here. On September 30th, there should be a class. September 29th is a Sunday, and our Vajrayana class should have a session then. Then from the 30th of September to the 5th of October, there will be absolutely no public classes available before the 5th of October. So from the 30th of the month, extending all the way up until just before October 5th, there is indeed a scheduled Vajrayana class that will be held on October 6th. Following that, in the subsequent week, we will resume our regular and scheduled classes starting this coming Monday. Therefore, during the upcoming National Day holiday period, from the 30th of September up to October 5th, these courses we have now weren't available. However, around the second day of October, there is a strong possibility that we might host a public lecture, or perhaps even two distinct public lectures, either one or possibly two sessions. This is a class outside of our usual curriculum. As for the specific topic, it might be about mind training, or perhaps about Buddhism and the science of the mind. Roughly, that's the kind of public lecture it will be. These are some of our upcoming arrangements. That's the very first thing to consider. Now, the second point I would like to bring to your attention is that here at Larong, after a period of time, probably starting around October 1st, every year we have a Vajrayana class. Of course, in very rare cases, if someone doesn't meet the requirements for Vajrayana, some individual Kenpos or Kenmos will teach a Sutrayana class. As for the rest, all the classes are basically focusing on Vajrayana. In the past, we taught the luminous essence and overview of the commentary on the Guhya Garbha Tantra. We taught that for a year or two. So this year we will begin teaching Finding Comfort and Ease in the Illusoriness of Things, one of the 3 volumes of Finding Comfort and Ease. With this arrangement, I sincerely hope that all the Dharma friends in each and every class gathered here will diligently do their best to study well on their own. If you fully meet the specified requirements, I think, some people might have opinions or doubts about the Kenpos or Kenmos regarding faith or other such matters, but I think the Sutrayana classes are so precious, and basically these are not much different from the Vajrayana classes. There's really no difference. You've already listened to all of these. Moreover, we are all Vajra brothers and sisters. If Vajra brothers and sisters keep their Samaya vows well, and if you uphold the Samaya of relying on a qualified teacher in Sutrayana, if you keep it well, then listening to Vajrayana teachings should not be a problem at all. If there is a problem, it should be an issue with oneself. Because every year when we teach Vajrayana classes, some people try to take advantage of the situation here, and they don't attend the Vajrayana classes, nor do they want to listen to the Sutrayana classes. Then in the meantime, they start to become distracted. Starting from this year, for those who do not attend classes in the middle, there should be some requirements for them as well. Either they should practice the preliminaries or there must be some management. Otherwise, some of us sometimes just use excuses, not genuine reasons, because now those of us who are not particularly diligent have a perfectly valid excuse during our annual retreat in the year, an excuse during Dharma assemblies, and an excuse when Vajrayana teachings are given. So lazy people often have plenty of excuses for not listening to the Dharma. So Just the day before yesterday, I also had a conversation with the people right here. The Kenpos and Kenmos in charge of academic affairs also held a special meeting. They asked everyone to be very diligent this year as well. Each class and each individual situation may be different. However, it's truly best not to be scattered or distracted, not to run around everywhere during that period. There's really no need for that at all. If you are not going to study properly and diligently, then there is no need for you to remain here any longer. If you do want to stay here, you really should diligently study and practice. In this regard, everyone should be well prepared, especially since we really need the view of Vajrayana. The view of Vajrayana is not just simply by attentively listening to my Vajrayana class teachings. That's not enough. We should. Why is it that all the monks and nuns at the Larunga Buddhist Academy are specifically required to take such courses? Actually, our current practice of Vajrayana at Larung is not like it was when the precious Khenchen Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was alive. When he was alive, his spiritual power was very strong. And when he taught Vajrayana, there were several classes almost every year. But as for us now, I am here rather thick-skinned, and I always do my very best to teach a portion every single year as well. But in reality, for the entire institute as a whole, it seems that the study of Vajrayana is not particularly strong. Compared to the study of Sutrayana, it is a bit weaker. So in recent years, the courses we've arranged for everyone are also on this topic. This is in the area of Vajrayana. I ask that everyone should take it seriously. I believe that many people's realizations, many people's genuine experiences may be attained within Vajrayana. That's one important thing. And then there's another significant matter that I would like to mention here. We are currently studying the Shurangama Sutra. I sincerely hope that some of our Dharma friends will truly engage in research on the Shurangama Sutra. And some Dharma friends can focus on research into the Pure Land teachings. Of course, here at our institute, we also have some specialized research classes. Actually, this is very good. As for specialized classes, if our Buddhist institute doesn't have any research or academic papers, and is just about taking exams or simply about giving lectures, then it's basically at the level of elementary or middle school. In elementary and middle school, teachers lecture every day, but there's no research or academic topics, including debates and seminars. Many of these are missing. But once you get to university, there should be various different research departments, as well as specialized research programs. All of these should be present. So at Larunga, we have many different levels and stages, and each student is at a different stage. But for those at a relatively higher level, from a collective perspective, we now have specialized classes in Madhyamaka studies, specialized research in Pure Land Buddhism, and specialized research in Chen Buddhism. We've actually been working on these areas for many years now. In the distant future, not only should we have collective research like this, but individuals should also. For example, I am preparing to start research on the Shurangama Sutra. Then I would study it for anywhere from 3 to 10 years. Then I would study the Lotus Sutra, or I would study the Diamond Sutra, or something else. As for the subjects we research, it could be a single sutra or a single treatise, or it could focus on a particular author. For example, I might research the life of Guru Padmasambhava, or study the life of the Dakini Yeshe Tsogyal. If you look at the West, there are so many, in every school there are dedicated programs on Tibetan Buddhism. There is a particularly large amount of research on these great masters. Some individuals focus on studying Milarepa, while others delve into the works of Serakandro, and still others conduct research on Marpa Lotsawa, or the Venerable Jigme Lingpa, or Venerable Longchenpa. Basically all the specialized research topics on senior masters, or a particular scripture, treatise, and currently famous Dharma teachings of all major schools have already been chosen. Many professors told me that now if they want to find a topic, it has to be a less well-known teaching. Otherwise, all the famous teachings have already been chosen by many professors. If they've all been chosen, then it's very difficult for their research projects to get funding approved. First, when applying within the institute, they check whether anyone else has researched this topic. If someone has already done research on it, then it's fine. You just have to find another topic to research. So I think in the future we should, maybe in just about 1 month or so, I hope that in each of your classes, is there anyone, whether on the mountain here or not, whether monastics or lay practitioners, of course, if you don't have a certain level, maybe you've just started studying the Shurangama Sutra, if you want to do research, maybe it's not possible yet. If you've just taken refuge and immediately want to do research, there might be some difficulties, but it's still possible. Like the Master Genjin I mentioned just a couple of days ago, when he first started out, he wasn't even a Buddhist at all. After reading the Shurangama Sutra, he then developed faith, entered the Buddhist path, and then became a monk. He vowed to write a commentary on the Shurangama Sutra. Later, when the 3 sages of the West came to receive him, he said, "I'm not free now. I still have one thing left unfinished." If it were us, maybe we wouldn't care. If Amitabha Buddha came, we'd be very happy. We'd want to go to the Pure Land first, and then, if there's a chance, come back to write treatises. But he wasn't like that. He said, "I haven't finished writing this." So for someone like him, before he started studying Buddhism, he came to it by reading the Shurangama Sutra. So I think if we have some exceptional individuals, this kind of situation is also acceptable. It's fine if you've just started learning about Buddhism. You can also do research, but I hope that the Dharma teachers in charge of academic affairs can also take a look and see how things are. At that time, we can fill out a form and discuss it. If you're doing research, you should also be followed up. It's not enough to just sign up and say, "I want to do research." That day, we vowed to go to Africa to spread the Dharma. When it came time to actually follow through, many people said, like, "I'm sick, I don't want to go." At first, a lot of people raised their hands to sign up, but when it really came time to do it, everyone got a bit scared or had this or that excuse. Don't be like that. You should think it over for a month first. If after about a month we can look again, especially regarding certain specific scriptures, this kind of process is necessary. The current level of us Buddhists is actually quite good. If we don't do research now, then when will we? On one hand, we should make breakthroughs in our practice. On the other hand, we must also make breakthroughs in our research. If we truly don't have this, it really won't work effectively. I think here in Asia, the overall atmosphere for scientific research is relatively weak. In the future, we should definitely dedicate our whole lives to studying one scripture, study one text on Madhyamaka, Yogacara, or Buddhist logic, or even the great illusory net Tantra. Any of these is fine. Or biographies, if it's a biography. It could be about any great master, that's all acceptable. I just wanted to mention this. There's one more thing I want to talk about. It won't take long. It's fine to discuss them internally, but I still wanted to bring it up for each and every one of us and for every single department. I hope everyone can pay attention to hygiene and management. We should care deeply about these. Now that we have departments, some departments exclusively focus their attention and resources on their own indoor spaces. The renovations and cleanliness are quite good. A couple of days ago, I mentioned that for each of our classes, the Kenpos and Kenmos should ensure assembly halls kept in a dignified and solemn manner. Recently, I checked a few assembly halls, and they were actually pretty decent. But now, when I look at the different departments, I think the cleanliness of the surrounding areas also needs to be emphasized. So I'd like to mention this here as well. I hope that around each of your departments, within about 2 or 3 meters, the person in charge of each department should go and take a look themselves. Honestly, I really wanted to name just a few specific departments, but since the overall scope is far too broad, I will not be mentioning them at this point. Within about half a month, because some of us are still working on construction projects, this might be related. But some places has always been the case. For example, at the entrance of some departments, there's always been a particularly unsightly pipe, which has been left there for many years. Behind some departments, the drainage system is there's all sorts of messy stuff inside. Some departments' garages, the entrances are exactly the same. They're always messy like that. So this is related to the attitude of the department supervisors and also to the external environment. According to the Yogacara school's perspective, all phenomena are created by the mind, so it's related to this. I hope that each department will first, together with their own team, go around and take a look at the surroundings and check the area under your jurisdiction. That's just one aspect. Also, on a personal level, it's the same. Some people renovate their own Buddha halls inside, making them splendid and extremely dignified, but the surroundings are not very ideal. They throw things around everywhere, and that's not good. Our institute sincerely hopes to become a garden-style place in the future so that it looks absolutely stunning both inside and out. This truly requires everyone to have a strong sense of hygiene. This needs to be improved, otherwise, right now, in many places like tourist attractions, people tend to throw things everywhere. Discarded instant noodle wrappers and all sorts of other items are just carelessly tossed around. This is what it's like in many places now. Everyone can easily see and access this information online as well. This is related to our personal cultivation and our personal sense of hygiene. According to the Vinaya Sutra, as practitioners, we should keep everything clean inside and out. We need to sweep away dust, filth, and impurities. Today should be the 16th. Then, exactly half a month later, our teams from various departments all together, I'll go and take a look as well. I hope that your departments, no matter which specific department you are from, must be related to the surrounding environment. If necessary, some places should still be adjusted a bit. Everyone should be clear about this. That's all I have to say. Is this considered Buddhism? It's certainly not Buddhism, is it? But sometimes, perhaps you should mention these things briefly. Next, let us now begin discussing the Shurangama Sutra. The Shurangama Sutra is indeed a significant scripture. Everyone, when hearing such profound Mahayana teachings, should have a truly joyful heart. Why do I say a joyful heart? There are a few reasons. One reason is that we have the freedom to listen to the Dharma, because right now, in many places around the world, people are not free in mind or body. This is especially common. Some time ago, I was with a fellow villager, and we took a break outside for a while. That fellow villager, while on the grass, stretched out his legs, and after a brief moment he said, "Lama Chin, life is truly very good now, isn't it?" I asked, "Why is that?" A few years ago he had indeed spent several years in prison. But in prison you weren't allowed to stretch your legs like this. Now I stretch my legs, I have freedom. If I hadn't gone to prison, I wouldn't know the joy of this freedom. Indeed, for us, perhaps in this very world, there are many individuals whose bodies and minds are not truly free. Some have their minds deeply entangled by all kinds of external demons, with various mental illnesses constantly haunting and afflicting them. Some individuals have their bodies locked away in a prison. That is certainly one reason. And there's another reason, which is that our bodies are relatively healthy, not plagued by illness. There's also a fellow villager from my area who has been sick for many, many years. His legs, later, just last year, we tried to find a way to provide him with some assistance as well. Then one of his feet was amputated, so now he only has one foot left. But later his illness basically got better. He said he feels especially happy now. Why? Because he can finally sleep at night. In the very distant past, for many, many years, he was always in pain, always crying out, always shouting. But recently, even though he's missing a foot, he feels very happy because the pain at night isn't so severe anymore. So sometimes for ourselves, sometimes we feel, I'm suffering a lot, but actually we not only have our physical and mental health and freedom, but also on top of that, we have the wonderful opportunity to hear and learn about the Mahayana Buddhist teachings. I think sometimes perhaps for example, if you are blind, unable to perceive the light, you would undoubtedly wish to see the entire world. If you are deaf, unable to hear any sound, and you clearly see others' lips moving distinctly as they speak, you would also envy other people in this entire world. In the very same way, now that we have the chance to hear the Mahayana Buddhist teachings, for each of us it should be something very joyful. First of all, everyone should always have a truly joyful attitude when listening and learning. That's one aspect. Another point is that the Dharma we are hearing now is also the very rare and truly precious Shurangama Sutra. The Shurangama Samadhi Sutra and the Shurangama Sutra are a bit different. In our Shurangama Sutra, it discusses the Shurangama Samadhi. As for the Shurangama Samadhi, it will be explained later. Actually, the main teachings on the Shurangama Samadhi are found in the Shurangama Samadhi Sutra, where it is discussed in greater detail. in Han regions. It was also very well known in the past. It was translated by Kumarajiva. If you have the opportunity, you should also look at this sutra. If I have the chance, I can also teach it to everyone, because as for that sutra, there is a lineage for it in the Tibetan Buddhist canon. I have previously compared the Tibetan and Chinese versions. They are basically the same, with no significant differences between the Chinese and Tibetan texts. But how exactly does this sutra explain it? At that time, it was probably the Venerable Shariputra who said, when the demon king is running rampant, what should be done? Because when we talk about the Shurangama Sutra, the demon hordes are very displeased. It has a great impact on them, so they will go all out to interfere. So what should we do at that time? Then the Buddha said, there's nothing to worry about. Although the demon king may try to cause disturbances whenever the demon king truly intends to create trouble, because of the profound blessing power of the Shurangama Samadhi, he ends up binding himself with 5 kinds of fetters. Whenever the demon king just thinks about either the person teaching the Shurangama Sutra or those listening to the Shurangama Sutra, tries to create obstacles for them right then and there, the demon king himself, relying on the power of the Shurangama Samadhi, is constantly bound by 5 kinds of fetters. That's why, since ancient times, many people who recite the Shurangama mantra and those who practice the Shurangama Sutra have found their cultivation to go quite smoothly from beginning to end. This is also due to the blessing power of the Shurangama Samadhi. Actually, the reason why the great masters of the past valued certain scriptures, there must be extremely profound meanings within them. For example, Master Tai Shu said that the Shurangama Sutra we are discussing now contains the teachings of all the various schools in Han Chinese Buddhism. They can all be included within it. This includes the Chan school, the Pure Land school, the Vinaya school, and the Tiantai school, as well as the Huayan school and the esoteric school. All of these elements are fully encompassed within it. So it is precisely called Tong She. Tong means it rules over everything. It thoroughly governs and encompasses everything within its scope. And then She, as in to gather in or to receive. It is said that the Shurangama Sutra actually contains teachings of all different schools and sects. All their doctrines can be included within it. This Shurangama Sutra is considered a classic text of the Chan school and also a classic of the Tiantai school, because it discusses many principles of Ji and Guan, calm and insightful meditation. You see, even the Venerable Master Ji Zhou in the past so earnestly wished to obtain this precious Shurangama Sutra, not to mention all the others like the Vinaya school and the esoteric school. Therefore, among all the varied schools of thought, this sutra is especially valued. Next, let's talk about the Shurangama Sutra. As for the Shurangama Sutra, there aren't many records of miraculous responses associated with it. However, there are quite a few people who have attained enlightenment by relying on it, but perhaps the stories and their plots are not as abundant as those found in the Lotus Sutra or the Diamond Sutra. Still, there are some accounts of people relying on the Shurangama Sutra to attain liberation or enlightenment, and even to help deliver all sentient beings from suffering. Such occurrences are relatively more common. There's one example like this. Some of you may have had the opportunity to read the Recollections of Shadows and Dust. I personally used to read it quite a lot during my earlier days. Within its pages, there are many fascinating stories to discover. There's a story detailed in the Recollections of Shadows and Dust. Perhaps some of you have already read it. It was probably around the year 1910. Around that specific time, there was an individual, a man named Liu Wenhua. He was located at a place known as Jiaxing Temple in Beijing. He remained there for a period, approximately a month or so. He became quite familiar with the monks residing there. Then he said the Shurangama Sutra, which is for enlightenment, and the Lotus Sutra, which is for attaining Buddhahood, are very important. Later, he obtained a copy of the Shurangama Sutra there. It was just like the Tang monk, diligently fetching the scriptures. He happily returned home with it. His home was in Hebei or somewhere else. After he got back, he read the Shurangama Sutra, the scripture he had obtained. After reading it, he could barely understand it. The language was very obscure, and the content was very profound. Since he couldn't understand it, he became confused. He and some other people, his friends, read it together, but still couldn't make sense of it. Later, there was a temple in the local area where there was an old monk, so they thought of going there to seek help. They wanted the old monk to explain the Shurangama Sutra. They asked the old monk to teach the Shurangama Sutra. The old monk said, "I've heard of reciting Buddhist scriptures, but I've never heard of explaining Buddhist scriptures." The old monk had never even heard of giving Dharma talks or expounding on the teachings. The old monk was also rather muddle-headed, so he didn't teach them. Since he didn't teach, there was nothing they could do. After they returned, as for Mr. Liu just mentioned, he was still very focused. He didn't give up and kept studying persistently. So how did he study? He kept reading and looking at the texts, kept thinking and reflecting like this, persisted for 7 or 8 years. Actually, when it comes to studying and these things, it really takes a considerable amount of time and significant effort. It's very important indeed. Some of us, for example, whether it's tutoring or giving lectures, these endeavors all take many, many years. Some people, however, quit after just half a year. I often think to myself, oh, this person is doing quite well at teaching, but after half a year, they're nowhere to be seen. Then I would ask the Dharma teacher, that person from your class, the one who was pretty good at teaching, where did he go? And they would say, we don't know. It seems like he was around not long ago, but now it seems like he's a bit of a drifter. So he couldn't stay in their class either. There are some people like that. Of course, this is just me bringing up another topic. It truly reminds me of something from our teaching exams. Certain people's vivid images immediately come to mind, these distinct memories. Like the one just now, he was always focused. When he was always focused, sometimes when he really couldn't understand something, he would often kneel in front of the Buddha statue and pray, keep prostrating with great diligence. With faith, he would frequently pray to the Buddha. He kept reading the Shurangama Sutra over and over. By the very end, he had become quite thoroughly familiar with all the words and passages contained within it. The profound meaning, too, was now completely different from what it had been before. You could say that he had mastered it thoroughly. He began to excel in many aspects of it. In fact, you see, for 7 or 8 years, he read only the Shurangama Sutra and kept at it without stopping. Sometimes for us, if we devote ourselves to a single scripture or treatise, put in long-term effort, then eventually it's just like the story of water slowly dripping through a stone. Gradually, through our own diligent efforts and perseverance, we can eventually overcome all difficulties and fears. Later on, there was one particular time when he was reading this very scripture in a local pharmacy. Next to the pharmacy, there was someone specifically responsible for, much like our accountants today. This individual, specifically Mr. Huang, was the person responsible for managing the accounts. He was positioned very close to him. He was reading the Shurangama Sutra. Mr. Huang was sitting right beside him. The two of them were indeed very close to each other. Both were deeply focused. One was bowing his head, diligently calculating numbers, while the other was deeply engrossed in reading his scripture. As he was carefully reading, he suddenly had a great awakening. What kind of awakening was it? The entire material world, whether it was towering mountains and flowing rivers, all of it, pavilions and terraces or palaces, everything appeared just like a world made of crystal. It transformed into an incredibly pure and magnificent land. And within it, the world of sentient beings, including heavenly dragons and yakshas, the 8 legions of devas and nagas, including Dharma protectors, all beings both human and non-human, were all vividly clear. Each of them was holding various precious and valuable offerings, waiting in the vast void, and so on. The entire world was nothing like ours, a truly different realm, which is tainted and defiled, an extremely pure and magnificent world. At that moment, he continuously saw within this pure, clear vision some people who had been connected to him in the past. Suddenly, 2 individuals who had already passed away appeared. They appeared as ghosts, but that's likely just how it's described in Chinese culture. They might not have been ghosts. Maybe they were non-human beings, rakshasas, or beings in the intermediate state. So who were these 2 people? In the past, with this particular gentleman, they had disputes concerning land ownership. And after the dispute, they went to court In the end, he won. As he won, the other two lost. After the two of them lost, they both died from anger. In Chinese culture, it's common to say someone died from anger. Later, they also appeared. The two people who had died from anger just now also appeared. And what else appeared? Because these two people died from anger, he developed a deep sense of aversion toward the entire cycle of samsara that Mr. Liu just mentioned. He developed a sense of renunciation. Later, he saw through many things in the world. He even quit drinking and abstained from lust. He changed a lot. After that, his wife became unhappy. After becoming unhappy, she also died from anger. So now 3 people had died from anger. Later, their cherished daughter, also because her mother was gone, and perhaps he wasn't home either, so there was no one to take care of her. Eventually, his daughter also died. After she died, all of these people appeared in his pure vision. The 3 people who had died from anger just now, actually, this saying of dying from anger, in the future, it would be best for us here in the Han region to avoid using the term died from anger. Because of this, I have also asked many people in the West, I asked, do people die from anger like this? They said, no, there's no such thing as dying from anger. How could there be? People get angry, but no one dies from it. Then I also asked Africans whether Africans ever say someone died from anger. They don't have that either. They do get angry sometimes. And when they get angry, sometimes they're especially irritable, that kind of thing. In Tibetan regions, there's simply no such thing as dying from anger. Maybe we say it casually, like, I'm really angry, I feel terrible. We say things like that. In Confucian culture, or whatever it may be, it is quite common. Even in some movies and television shows, you see someone get extremely angry, and then they die on the spot or fall ill immediately. From now on, as Buddhists, it's best not to have this concept. People don't die from anger. How could that be possible? But in the recollections of Shadow and Dust, it says 2 of his friends died from anger. His wife died from anger. 3 people died from anger on the spot. So these 4 people appeared in his visions. At first, he was really scared, wondering if they had come to take his life. Because before, they all died from anger because of him. Of course, he was scared. He was very afraid. But later on, it seemed that they were not like that at all. The 2 people, these 2 friends, they said, this time, can you help us attain liberation? See if you can help us be liberated. He said, how can I help you attain liberation? I myself haven't achieved realization, so how could I help you? The 2 of them said, the only thing, just agree to help us attain liberation. Then we can step on your shoulders and we can ascend to heaven. So he agreed. And after he agreed, these 2 friends were already floating in the void. Ascend to heaven, right? Then his wife and daughter had the same request, can you help us attain liberation too? And he agreed as well. After that, his former parents, both of them, also made the same request. But his parents' attitude was different from before. His parents came to him looking very happy. Afterwards, he helped all 6 of them attain liberation at the same time. What's called liberation, perhaps by their explanation, it means ascending to heaven. According to some of our interpretations, he really did help them reach a pure land, because a pure land is also considered ascending to heaven. So you could say that, helping them reach such a place. So for these 6 people, he used the method of the Shurangama Sutra to help them attain liberation. Of course, when talking about this story, at first I was a bit skeptical. I had read this book before and was half convinced, half doubtful. Could it really be that simple? Later I thought, the causes and conditions are truly inconceivable. Just like our precious Guru, once during a morning meditation, a very beautiful celestial being appeared. And this celestial being said, I was your old mountain goat in a previous life. Now I have gone to such and such a pure land. And now I'm in a certain pure land in the east. Mipham Rinpoche is also there, and so on. So sometimes the immense power of the Dharma is also truly inconceivable. I think because this person, although he might be a scholarly type, he is just an ordinary person after all. But his remarkable diligence and unwavering faith are probably quite extraordinary, because he has already spent a significant, indeed 8 or 9 long years, dedicated to study and prayer. One is praying to the Buddha, and another is having great faith in the Shurangama Sutra. Moreover, he is very familiar with and proficient in its teachings and should be extremely well versed and skilled in them. It's just like the story of achieving enlightenment by relying on a dog's tooth. Although the dog tooth itself had no special blessing, however, because the Buddha's blessing entered the dog tooth, in the end the old woman attained realization through it. Sometimes these causes and conditions are truly inconceivable. It's like in our worldly life. When we study various chemical reactions, we observe that different elements, when precisely combined together under specific conditions, invariably produce entirely new and distinct chemical reactions, and things that originally seemed impossible in the end give rise to something else. Whether it's solids, liquids, or gases, many different and varied things can occur. So in Buddhism, sometimes this kind of profound blessing and positive energy also arises from many such causes and conditions. So what kind of person is this? This person relies on either his own faith or the blessing power of the Shurangama Sutra or his usual daily prayers to the Buddha. Because of these reasons, as a result, these 6 people were already liberated. After the liberation was completed, after a while, his pure vision disappeared. After it disappeared, he took a look around. That Mr. Huang earlier mentioned was still doing calculations, still working on that. Then he asked, "Did you see that? Did anything happen here?" He replied, "No, I didn't see anything." Then he kept his head down, continuing with his calculations. It was at this moment that he realized, so it turns out he must have been experiencing this phenomenon entirely within his own state of mind, a kind of internal manifestation. Later, it seemed that this specific situation, this particular occurrence, was also explicitly mentioned by the Master Tanshu. It seems that in the end, in the year 1914, at that time, Master Tanshu had not yet become a monk. However, after Master Tanshu heard this compelling story, he was worried that this person was too attached and might become possessed. So he told him, "If you want to break through the skandha of consciousness, don't be attached to these things." But later on, he was able to fully accept this. That's why this piece of history was recorded in writing. So just now, although this story was quite lengthy, for those of us who genuinely possess faith on a sutra or focusing wholeheartedly or praying with single-minded devotion, many unimaginable things like this should certainly be able to happen. Moreover, this gentleman might not have been a very famous person, but since he had the ability to help liberate those who were connected to him, whether they were karmic creditors or others, he relied on this profound sutra to help them truly attain liberation. So as for his own future, being reborn in the Pure Land, I think there shouldn't be any problem. Therefore, this sutra not only greatly empowers one's own practice and realization, moreover, by relying on this sutra, whether it's for your own relatives and friends or for parents and loved ones who have passed away, it can actually be of tremendous help. So for ourselves in the future, whether our parents have passed away, or we have some relatives, some friends, or even some people with whom we have existing grudges, this is also very good and highly beneficial for effectively repaying karmic debts. Some of us say, "I can't sleep at night because many karmic creditors come to find me." In this case, on one hand, you can recite the Shurangama Sutra or recite the Shurangama mantra, or when you go to sleep at night, you can gently place the Shurangama Sutra by your bedside, somewhere close to you. Nowadays, many people keep their phones closest to them, while the Shurangama Sutra is placed farthest away. But in fact, it should be the other way around. The Shurangama Sutra should be kept closest to you. It is beneficial and offers blessings for your body and mind. Especially if karmic creditors come to find you, the Shurangama Sutra will rise up and act as a dharma protector for you. If your phone and these electronic devices are positioned very close to your body, about 1 meter or so, and they can potentially cause a large amount of harm to your body. This is something everyone should be aware of. So when we sleep at night, it's best to keep the Shurangama Sutra closer to you and keep your mobile phone and other electronic devices away, as far away as possible. Otherwise, the harm they cause to your body can be quite significant. I think you all understand this point. Now, I will officially begin the lecture. If we truly want to discuss it, we can simply take our time, right? So today, as we begin to discuss the Shurangama Sutra, When it comes time to expound upon its teachings, there are arhats present who possess all the merits, as mentioned earlier. The great wise Sariputra and also Mahamodgalyayana are all present. Then we come to Mahakaustila, also known as Sibochi, also known as the long-nailed Brahmana. After he attained the fruit of arhatship, he was sometimes called the long-nailed Brahmana as well. Why was he called the long-nailed Brahmana? Actually, he was a truly outstanding arhat. But in the past, he studied with non-Buddhist sects. Mahakatyayana, his mother, yes, he should be Sariputra's maternal uncle. Kaustila, he is Sariputra's uncle. His mother should be this person's older sister. He is called Sipochi. Sipochi also means big knee or large kneecap. It also carries the meaning of long nails. Why is he called that? In the past, this person was very highly skilled in the art of debate. He was truly formidable in all his debates. Later, after Sariputra's mother became pregnant, yes, after Sariputra's mother conceived Sariputra, he generally couldn't really win any debates against his own sister. Later, he eventually realized that it wasn't actually because of his sister. It must have something to do with the child that she was carrying. Eventually, he became aware of this fact. He thought, if I don't study diligently after the child is born, I can't out-debate him. Even now, debating his mother, he still faces difficulties. So, when the child is born, he might be an even more formidable debater. So, he made a vow. He would study the 18 major scriptures of the non-Buddhist schools, and before he had mastered them, he just won't cut his fingernails. There are many strange ways of making vows among the non-Buddhists. Then he kept going out, which is very much like us going abroad to study. He went to other places, leaving his hometown, and started studying the scriptures there. As he studied the scriptures one after another, he eventually mastered almost all of them. He had already mastered the 18 scriptures. And all this time, he never cut his fingernails. In the end, his fingernails became extremely long, so people called him the long-nailed Brahmana. He was a Brahmin priest. Later, after he had mastered all the scriptures, he returned home. He was preparing to look for his sister's son. At that time, when he went to search for him, he asked others where the young child was. They said that when he was 8 years old, he had already fully mastered all the scriptures. By age 16, he was eloquent and unimpeded in debate. He was truly unbeatable in debates with anyone. When he heard that, he was very unhappy. He was arrogant and lost confidence. Later, he heard that it was Gautama Buddha. Gautama had already accepted Sariputra as his disciple. Sariputra's monkhood displeased him further. Arrogant and faithless, he thought, I must find Gautama, Shakyamuni Buddha. So when he went to look for him, Sariputra was ordaining as a monk in front of Shakyamuni Buddha. He would often fan him and stay there. At this, he became very angry. That non-Buddhist then debated with the Buddha. But during the debate, after just a few exchanges, he realized he simply couldn't argue any further. He used an analogy like a fine horse. When it sees the shadow of the whip, it becomes quite afraid. Very clever indeed. Because when you're riding a horse, if the horse is especially smart, you just need to show it the whip, and it will move forward. There's no need to actually hit it. So at that time, this long-nailed Brahmana, as soon as he heard just a few words from the Shakyamuni Buddha, he was clever enough to realize, oh, I can't debate with him. After that, he took refuge. After taking refuge, he began the process of ordaining as a monk, and he quickly attained the fruit of arhatship. So in Buddhism, sometimes whether someone comes from a non-Buddhist background or hasn't studied Buddhism yet, if they already have a certain level of ability and wisdom, there are two possible outcomes. One possibility is that after entering the Buddhist path, their views become very correct and their wisdom is quite remarkable, and as a result they become extremely outstanding and great individuals. For some, however, their wrong views may be very deeply rooted and their discriminative thoughts are very strong. They are unable to change. This kind of situation also exists, although it's extremely rare. Such cases do occur. Take someone like Kaustila, for example, who later became the foremost in debate within Buddhism. The Ekotara Agama also mentions that he attained the 4 distinct kinds of eloquence and could readily respond to any challenge presented to him. No matter what difficult questions were posed, he could answer them all one by one. So the so-called Venerable Mahakaustila was unmatched in eloquence. Among the Buddha's 10 great and most prominent disciples in Buddhism, he was also renowned for his unsurpassed eloquence. Sipochi was also a remarkable figure. Such a great master was also present at the time. This is the first point. Then the name of this individual who is being referred to is Purna Maitrayani Putra. As for Purna Maitrayani Putra, Purna is his father, which means fulfilling a wish. Maitrayan is his mother. It is the compassion of mercy. So he has both his father's name and his mother's name. Yes, we usually call him the wish-fulfilling, compassionate son. Gangpo Zambyo in the Tibetan language. Gangpo means Purna Shwamba, refers to his mother, meaning compassion, and Wo simply means son. So, in ancient India, there were both paternal and possibly maternal lineages, and sometimes both together. But calling someone like this is a bit, for example, if my father is called Yubo and my mother is called Rentsuo, Yubo Rentsuo, it certainly seems like both names are. And in our Tibetan region, generally speaking, if the father or mother passes, after someone who is alive passes away, their name can no longer be mentioned. If you mention their name, consequently, others will be very unhappy about it. Why would you bring up the name of someone who has died? If you mention the name of the deceased, then if both parents have passed away and the son calls out to them every day, calling his parents' names would be generally, for example, if someone has the exact same name and that particular person dies, their name must be changed immediately. If you don't change it and others call that person's name, similarly, for example, my father's name, if someone else happens to have the same name as my father, then it absolutely must be changed. If it isn't changed, others would not dare to utter that person's name in front of him. So, according to their customs, actually there are similarities in the West. Hillary Clinton, this is between husband and wife. There are also some, it seems, among them, some characters between the surname and given name. Some parents' names, some important names from the father's side or the mother's side. There are such cases as well. In the Han region at first, it seems it was a matriarchal society for a period of time, and later it eventually became a patriarchal society. In this particular case, perhaps the real name, if it were added in its entirety, in today's current reality, it's not very obvious. But in any case, the Venerable Purna, or Purna's son, was also quite remarkable. He was foremost in expounding the Dharma. The Ekotara Agama also mentions that he could extensively teach the Dharma and distinguish its meanings. He was extremely skilled in expounding the teachings broadly, and also particularly adept at distinguishing doctrinal meanings. This is so-called Bhikshu wish-fulfilling son. This refers to wish-fulfilling son, or the son of full compassion. What was his special characteristic? His main trait was skillful means in teaching the Dharma. It wasn't just that he was good at teaching emptiness, or just good at teaching luminosity. It's not like that. In his stories, as we have previously mentioned when discussing the Vimalakirti Sutra, when he taught the Dharma to others, he would first act as a doctor and treat people's illnesses, and once these people had great faith in him and were very happy, he would then gradually begin to teach the Dharma. If he had chosen to work as a doctor, it is certain that he would have performed his duties well too. Some of our doctors, for instance, even talk about past and future lives. So some doctors are really quite remarkable. They'll tell you what you were in a past life and what you'll be in the next. This is something I generally find hard to imagine. Because if you really knew about past and future lives, that would truly be something. So I hope that when some of our doctors treat patients, it's best to follow If you're a practitioner of Chinese medicine, use its principles to diagnose and treat, because Chinese medicine doesn't talk about past or future lives, and Western medicine less so. So sometimes if you were like Purna, maybe it would be possible, but even he didn't talk about such things. Just by simply taking your pulse, it seems you have committed some bad karma in a past life. Maybe you even killed someone. Let me look at your tongue. Oh yes, your karmic burden is indeed very heavy. Your karmic creditors are getting themselves ready to come after you very soon. Nowadays, some doctors don't say what they should. Strictly speaking, if you practice Chinese medicine, then you should use the principles of Chinese medicine, and Western medicine has its own way of looking at things. Whether he doesn't understand or say, we don't know. For past and future lives, we've spent our lives teaching scriptures, but now if we ask others to talk about past and future lives, it's almost impossible, let alone knowing it directly. Some doctors just look at someone's tongue and say, oh, your karmic creditors are after you. Maybe there's a black spot on the tongue. That's the karmic creditor. But for Purna, it might not be like this. He probably still teaches with skillful means. Sometimes as Buddhists, we do see doctors. This is actually quite good, seeking medical treatment. But when it comes to seeing a doctor, it's best not to mix Buddhist teachings. Moreover, the concepts of past and future lives are hard to believe. Past and future lives, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva spoke about that. As for emptiness, we can explain it through reasoning, but when it comes to the profound teachings, reasoning can't explain them. Didn't Nagarjuna Bodhisattva say this? So regarding past and future lives, this really is a bit not that simple, right? That's precisely how I perceive it. Having said that, he was including several crucial points, which we will discuss later on, specifically within the 4th volume, for some really profound and secret principles. Even the principles of emptiness, he could realize them all. He was that kind of arhat. And then there's Subhuti. Subhuti was foremost in understanding emptiness. There's a book called The Recorded Sayings of Master Shu Tang. It seems to be a book from the Song dynasty. There's a simple story in it. At that time, Subhuti was sitting within a cave, and while he in retreat, a rain of flowers fell. Then Subhuti said, who is making this rain of flowers fall for me? Who is praising me? Then Brahma said, I am the one who made the rain of flowers fall for you. I am the one praising you. Then Subhuti said, why are you praising me? He asked. You speak of Prajnaparamita as the foremost. You speak very well. Then Subhuti said, I haven't said a single word. Why are you praising me? Then Brahma said, yes, you haven't said a single word. I also haven't heard a single word, but this is precisely Prajnaparamita. That's why I made the rain of flowers for you. This really has a Zen flavor to it. Subhuti was such a person, actually, in the great Prajnaparamita Sutra, before I became a monk. In Tibet, we would often invite some monastics to recite the great Prajnaparamita Sutra. The great Prajnaparamita Sutra is very large. It has 10 volumes, usually takes 10 days to recite. In Tibet, we have a tradition where every year we invite monks, recite the Golden Light Sutra, Bhadrakalpa Sutra, or the great Prajnaparamita Sutra, which is recited most often. At that time, our family invited a monk to recite the great Prajnaparamita Sutra in the great Prajnaparamita Sutra. While reciting, you often hear Rangju, Rangju. Rangju refers to Subhuti. In Tibetan, it's pronounced Rangju. We had another guest, a fellow villager. He said, when you were reciting the sutra today, you kept saying, Rangju, Rangju. What does Rangju mean? At that time, I didn't really understand either, so I said, maybe it's a person's name, or maybe it's the name of a place. Back then, I hadn't become a monk yet, and at that time, it couldn't be done openly. It had to be secret. If we heard a dog barking outside, we would immediately hide the sutra books. That was the kind of era it was. I remember that in the great Prajnaparamita Sutra, Rangju appears very frequently. That day when we talked about Master Wei Chui at that time prayed to Manjushri Bodhisattva for 11 years. Later, Manjushri Bodhisattva appeared to him in the form of riding a lion and then entered his mouth. After that, regarding the Shurangama Sutra, He understood it as thoroughly as Subhuti understood emptiness. He completely grasped it. This is how it was described. That's why Subhuti is known as the foremost in understanding emptiness. In the great Prajnaparamita Sutra, as well as in the medium and the small Prajnaparamita Sutra, it is said that those who realize the emptiness of prajna are truly remarkable. We have talked about this before as well. At that time, when Shakyamuni Buddha returned to the human world from the heavens, countless celestial beings accompanied him on his journey, and when he arrived, the wheel-turning kings, many of them went to welcome him. At that particular time, Subhuti was sitting in a cave making clothes. When he heard that Shakyamuni Buddha was returning to the human world, he also wanted to go and personally meet him, so he put his clothes aside, stood up, and as his feet gently touched the solid ground, he thought to himself, how could Shakyamuni Buddha be form, sound, smell, or taste, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, earth, water, fire, wind, or any other things? As he analyzed each, the Buddha was none of these things. Everything was of empty nature. Then he thought, oh, I won't go to meet him. The Buddha is all emptiness, so there's no need. So he went back and continued sewing his clothes. At that time, it was the 5 who went to welcome him, King Prasenajit, King Bimbisara, the 5 great kings. At this very moment, the Bhikshuni Lianhuase, she transformed herself into a wheel-turning king and lined up at the front. At first, those kings thought, the wheel-turning kings all came today, we are very happy. Naturally, he should be at the front of the line. When Shakyamuni Buddha saw this, the Bhikshuni Lianhuase revealed her original body. At that moment, the 5 kings were especially displeased. They thought, this Bhikshuni pretended to be a wheel-turning king in front of us. How could she do that? Then, at that moment, the Buddha, because there was a bit of dispute among them, the kings thought, we should be at the front. And that Bhikshuni, she had already met the Buddha for the very first time. Then, with a sense of great pride, she confidently declared, I am Bhikshuni Lianhuase, your devoted disciple. As for Subhuti, he never even went out of the cave at all. So, who is it that truly saw Bodhi? Doesn't the Ekotara Agama say, if one wishes to pay homage to the Buddha, whether in the future or the past, one should contemplate the emptiness of all dharmas. This is the true meaning of paying homage to the Buddha. There are also a few more verses. The meaning was, if you want to pay homage to the Buddha, no matter it's in the future, past, or present, they are all empty. This is the true homage to the Buddha. What does this truly mean? When we pay homage to the Buddha, there is no future, past, or present. Many people, when seeking empowerment, are also quite like, me first, me first. And it's the same when I'm attending a class, hours ahead of time. They often rush to the very front, eager to secure a prime spot for themselves. Many of us do that. On one hand, this could be necessary, as it depends on a kind of dependent origination. But on the other hand, I can understand both perspectives. Some people especially want to sit in the front. On one hand, I get it. Maybe it's because of their faith in the teacher or the Dharma, a kind of devotion. Some people, on the other hand, are completely indifferent and don't care at all. They've never even met the Dharma teacher. It's just like seeking musk. They just want to get the Dharma, that's all. Other than that, even when they encounter some Dharma teachers, they tend to keep their distance and avoid them. It's as if out of sight, out of mind. Comparing it this way, it seems that seeking a seat up front and wanting to be close is quite good. Once, during an empowerment given by the Guru, I saw that in our institute, it was probably an old Kempo who was leading a class. At that time, many of the stewards were blocking his way, but he just ignored them completely. He dragged his flowing robe and charged straight ahead. I personally saw the whole entire thing unfold. I heard that when Khenchen Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was still alive, some people would arrive exceptionally early to reserve a spot up front. Then some nuns would come over, pick up their things and toss them aside. Then she would sit there herself. Things like that happened too. So sometimes just for a seat, perhaps those individuals who haven't attained full realization, or those who, at least outwardly, haven't truly realized, care more about it. If someone is truly realized, or simply doesn't care at all about such things, they wouldn't mind about seats like this either. Just like Subhuti, he stayed in his cave and didn't come out at all. From our usual perspective, the Buddha was there, and everyone, humans and gods, were delighted. Everyone came. The only one who stayed in the cave was Subhuti. He made clothes. We find this a bit hard to understand, but later, why did the Buddha praise him? He said Subhuti was the best at coming to pay respects. He was the best at coming to see me. So for people who have realized emptiness like this, sometimes it's actually better if they don't come. But generally speaking, sometimes when we listen to the Dharma, we need to look at the Dharma teacher with a compassionate gaze. In the words of my perfect teacher, this is specifically mentioned. It says to look at the Dharma teacher with a joyful gaze and then to drink in this nectar-like Dharma sound. So, in this way, both of these attitudes are needed. That was a point about the Venerable Subhuti just now. Now let's talk about Upanishad. Upanishad is called Nijyan. He was quite close to the Tathagata. He viewed all phenomena as being like tiny, and then he contemplated the emptiness of those very particles. He first began by practicing the contemplation of impurity. Later, regarding all phenomena, he analyzed from large to small, from small to minute particles, and from minute particles to emptiness. This was his method of discernment. In the end, he attained a state identical to the Tathagata. He was an arhat of such a realization. This is Upanishad and so on. The word "and so on" here also includes many other arhats. They were the foremost among them. So how many others were there? There were also countless Pratyeka Buddhas, those at the level of no more learning. One group is the Pratyeka Buddhas. Here, the Pratyeka Buddhas, some commentaries say that perhaps during the Buddha's lifetime, Pratyeka Buddhas generally do not appear after his parinirvana and before another Buddha appears. Pratyeka Buddhas will then appear, just as it is explained in the root stanzas of the Middle Way. But the Pratyeka Buddhas mentioned here rely on practicing the 12 links of dependent origination, and through this are called yuanzhui, attaining enlightenment through the law of the 12 links of dependent origination. They are the same as Pratyeka Buddhas. Actually, among Pratyeka Buddhas, there are those likened to a unicorn's horn, and those among the assembly, or you could say there are two types, the solitary and the group Pratyeka Buddhas. Such a possibility exists. Or there may be Pratyeka Buddhas, solitary realizers, who come from other distinct pure lands. There are also other learned ones, countless learned ones. If we are talking about the learned ones, they should be Shravaka Arhats, because the Arhats mentioned earlier, according to the perspective of the Lesser Vehicle's own school, are all Arhats who have reached the stage of no more learning. There are also beginners, that is, those who have not yet truly attained the fruit of Arhatship, such as other bhikshus and bhikshunis, or those who have attained the elevated stages of stream enterer, once returner, and so on. All the other beginners had also come, all coming to the Buddha, arriving at the place where the Buddha resided. This might be the end of a sentence. Then it says the bhikshus will end the summer retreat with the pravarana ceremony. At that time, those who were residing there, the bhikshu sangha present at the scene, were actually in the summer retreat. After completing the retreat, they began the pravarana ceremony. Some of you lay people might not understand this. As for the retreat, generally speaking, the Buddha originally established it to prevent monastics from inadvertently killing or stepping on small insects on the ground during the summer months. During the 3 summer months, one must diligently listen, contemplate, and practice. They are not allowed to go out. This is the 3-month summer retreat. In Tibetan regions, due to special historical reasons in the past, the retreat usually lasts for 1.5 months. In Han Chinese regions, many places, there is a 3-month summer retreat during the summer months. Generally, the monks stay in the main hall, engaging in listening, contemplation, and practice, and are not allowed to go out. Then afterwards, there is the pravarana ceremony. As for this pravarana, at the time, many things restricted, but in the end, all of them could be fully permitted. So, what specific restrictions were there at that time? Going out was not allowed. They were also not permitted to point out each other's faults during the entire 3 months. On the last day, these restrictions could be lifted. This is also called ending the summer retreat. The 3 months of summer retreat have already ended. At that time, there was a boundary set up around the area. In the past, when I participated in the retreat, I went 3 times. In 1986, I went to a place called Wenga Monastery to do the retreat there. Usually, when we finished the retreat and pravarana, we would go out and have some fun in the surrounding area for a day. Later, in 1988, I went to their monastery again. It was a 1.5 months during the summer. Finally, in 1989, I went to a small monastery called Yangrao Monastery in Damba. They were all small monasteries. It was also considered a branch monastery of our Duamang monastery. At that time, some of the elder teachers asked me to go. I was truly just a beginner back then. I had not yet attained the fruit of arhatship at that point. Now I've already become a seasoned practitioner. Back then, it was quite different. I was just starting out, especially then. Everything was new to me. Now, some people here have just become monks. I can really relate to them. Everything feels so, whether it's giving teachings or lectures, I was very earnest in everything I did. But now, I've become an old hand at it. I'm practically on my last legs now. Back then, during the time of the summer retreat and pravarana ceremony, at that moment, bodhisattvas from all directions, they too, in order to resolve or to address the doubts in their own hearts, would come to inquire or seek resolution, or to discern and clarify the doubts in their minds, and then serve the compassionate and majestic Buddha, seeking the esoteric meanings in front of him, seeking the ultimate and profound truths of the Buddha's sacred teachings. At this moment, the Tathagata Buddha sat upright on the majestic Dharma seat, and in the midst of the vast assembly, he proclaimed the profound and ultimate truths of the sacred Dharma. This momentous and spiritually enriching Dharma feast, this invitation to the Dharma was offered to all sentient beings with the right conditions, even to those beings who had never heard it before, so that they too could joyfully partake in the feast and obtain something unprecedented. This immensely joyful feast of the Dharma was widely and generously offered to all, extended to all sentient beings in the entire assembly. What exactly is this comparable to? The Kalavinka bird. The Kalavinka, it is widely said, possesses an exceptionally beautiful voice. It is even said that while still inside its protective eggshell, its voice is already especially melodious. It seems that in many places the images of the Kalavinka bird are depicted differently. I'd like to share a few examples with everyone. One is the Kalavinka bird depicted in this way. In Buddhist scriptures, it is often said that there are also depictions like this, and naturally. Are there any others? Yes, there are also such depictions. There are a few more, but perhaps they are not provided here. Just like the voice of the Kalavinka bird, the Buddha's Brahma voice, the sound of his teaching, reaches throughout all four cardinal and intermediate directions, as well as above and below, encompassing the entire 10 directions of the world. At that time, the Buddha, seated on the arranged Dharma throne, began to teach everyone with a very loud and melodious voice, the true Dharma. When the true Dharma was being taught, countless bodhisattvas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, naturally gathered at this Dharma assembly. Among those countless bodhisattvas, the main one was Bodhisattva Manjushri, who was the foremost, as well as many other bodhisattvas. These bodhisattvas, and also some arhats we mentioned earlier, they attained realization through relying on the Shurangama Samadhi. Next, including the fifth scroll, in some of the following sutra passages, there will also be very detailed explanations provided. Today, we will conclude our discussion of the Shurangama Sutra here for now.
Bandharanga Padma Sodargye